I kind of want to look back. When the season was just starting, and specifically when we were just starting this podcast, one of the first things that I did was I gave my predictions in terms of who I think is going to win each individual conference at the FBS level. And then I also gave my prediction to who I think was going to win a national championship and who I thought was going to go out and be a part of this college football playoff at the end of the year. So I definitely want to go ahead and do that now. And we're going to start with the conferences. Now, I put together a bet slip of like picking every conference champion. It was like one of those, like I had like 37 cents left over from like another bet, and we tossed it on this, kind of like a scratch off lottery ticket. So I want to go around and take a look at each individual conference and how do I feel about my prediction still. So we're going to go in alphabetical order. We're going to start with the American Conference here. I had UTSA winning the American Conference as kind of that sleeper dark horse pick. Now, it looks shaky for UTSA. I'm not going to lie to you. I saw them lose to Army in September and made me doubt everything. But, after that loss to Tennessee for UTSA, they've been on a 7-game winning streak. They are tied. They're in a 3-way tie right now with Tulane and SMU. And Tulane, they actually play that Tulane team on the road this upcoming weekend. They're playing this on a Friday afternoon, 3:30 kickoff on ABC. This is the de facto semifinal game. Whoever loses this game will likely be left out of the American Conference Championship picture. SMU is playing Navy. I expect Navy to win that game outright, to say the least. So let's say, for intents purposes, SMU wins that game. That's one team that's going to be in. So you're looking at, you have to be undefeated in conference play in order to go out and play, go to this American Conference Championship. Now, who knows what happens to how they decide who ends up hosting the conference championship. The American is one of those conferences where the best conference record does get to host at their home stadium. I remember this when Cincinnati was in the American. They hosted Houston in 2021. I was actually there at that game. But UTSA is looking real good. They have Frank Harris back, and they're still in this picture. It's going to be a winner-take-all against Tulane, like I said. And for the record, Tulane may be favored, but the model not only thinks UTSA will cover, but they think that they're going to outright win on the road against Tulane. We're calling it now. We're calling UTSA beating Tulane tomorrow or today, depending on when you see this podcast. So that's one. So for the American Conference, we're feeling pretty good about the American. Next, we have the ACC. The ACC, we picked Florida State to win the ACC championship. And Florida State, unlike UTSA, who we talked about earlier, Florida State has already worked their way into the ACC championship. They're going to be competing for that. Neutral site game. They'll be taking on Louisville as well. So the ACC championship is already matched up. Last week, I was more confident in Florida State than I am right now. And it's because of what I said earlier. Jordan Travis had an extremely unfortunate injury. It's a very nasty injury. And we hope for the best in terms of hoping that Jordan Travis, gets better soon. But we're not going to see Jordan Travis in that Florida State uniform again. And the question is, how does Rodemaker handle that? I think there's enough talent on Florida State that they can still beat Florida, that they could still beat Louisville. But the margin of error is a bit smaller now. So I'm really curious with how Florida State handles it. But for now, we're feeling okay about Florida State. But it could look a little dicier here in the last couple of weeks because of that injury taking place. A very unfortunate injury. Not from a dirty play. I want to point that out as well. Next up, we got the Big 12. Big 12, we picked Texas to win the Big 12 championship. Texas, a team that beat Alabama. So we sort of didn't see that one coming. But at the same time, Texas, if they win, it's very simple. Texas wins. Texas is going to be in the Big 12 championship. Plain and simple. They just got to go beat Texas Tech. However, things could get pretty dicey here in terms of who Texas plays in the Big 12 championship. It could be literally 6 different teams. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Kansas State. We'll see who sorts themselves out. Right now, Oklahoma State says that they have the tiebreaker, but a lot of sort out there. West Virginia, Iowa State, and Texas Tech are technically not out either. They're long shots, and they'll need a lot of help. But let's be real. But those teams all have the possibility of going to the Big 12 championship as well. So quite a bit to sort out here in this final weekend. That's going to be fun to watch. But we feel that whomever Texas plays, regardless, Texas would be a favorite in the Big 12 championship. So we feel good about that. So right now we're projected to possibly go 3 for 3. We're not too bad. After that, we have the Big 10. We picked Michigan to win the Big 10 this year. I know as an Ohio guy, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Michigan, it just really depends on one game and one game only, the game. And we'll talk about the game later, so I'm not going to dive into it. But Michigan wins. They're going to be favored in that Big 10 championship against Iowa. If they lose on Saturday, then no Big 10 championship and likely a college football playoff appearance for Michigan. So everything's on the line there. Something to keep an eye on. Conference USA, we picked Western Kentucky to win the Conference USA, and we were wrong. We were wrong about Western Kentucky. Now, Western Kentucky was a team that, had their quarterback coming back, and beginning of the year, we were feeling reasonably good about Western Kentucky. They beat Mid-Tennessee State, Louisiana Tech. All right, things are going good there. Even when they lost to Jacksonville State, we weren't worried because Jacksonville State and Sam Houston, neither of those teams were eligible for the Conference USA Championship. So that's why I said earlier when we were talking about New Mexico State against Auburn, the New Mexico State-Jacksonville State has no water in terms of who goes to the Conference USA Championship because Jacksonville State is not eligible due to the NCAA probation that's put on new FBS teams. Jacksonville State is in year 2 of that. So that being said, they did lose to Liberty, but then they lose to New Mexico State. And that right there, my friends, seals Western Kentucky's fate. Because of that, Western Kentucky is not competing for a Conference USA championship. We'll still likely see them in bowl season because they do have 6 wins already, but we were wrong about that. So that's the first one that we got wrong. Now we go to the MAC. The MAC, we picked Toledo to win, and the MAC championship, I think, is going to be really interesting. We already know what the MAC championship is going to be. It's going to be the Red Hawks of Miami going up against Toledo. Toledo already has won the West. Miami, on the other hand, has gone and beat the East. Here's the thing about Toledo, though. Toledo has already played Miami and beat Miami. The reason why I say that is not because of what you think. It's just hard to beat a team twice. That MAC championship, which I believe that's also a neutral sider. I think that's at Ford Field still, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's going to be real intriguing. I'm looking forward to that MAC championship. MAC has always been something that I'm pretty excited to watch over, but something to keep an eye on as well. Toledo has a chance to win the MAC. Up next, we have the Mountain West Conference here, and in the Mountain West, we picked Boise State to win in the Mountain West, and Boise State, we picked Boise State to win this conference. Looked really, really dicey in October, but Boise State is, for all intents and purposes, they worked their way into this conversation right now that they're currently in. So here's what's looking like right now. So UNLV is on top. They're at 6-1. And then there's a freeway tie after that. Air Force, Boise State, and then also San Jose State. Boise State already has the win over San Jose State. So winning this game would mean that, okay, it's a semifinal game for the Mountain West. Air Force and Boise State, and Boise State is at home. So that helps. Air Force is also on a 3-game losing streak. If Boise State wins, they'll be in the Mountain West Championship. They probably will not get to host, but for all intents and purposes, they'll be in the Mountain West Championship. So Boise State is at least still alive, but they, I wouldn't have them favor. I don't know if I would have them favored over a UNLV. I think UNLV, they might be the favorite in that hypothetical. I haven't checked the model since I started recording the pod, so I can't say that for certain. But Boise State is still alive. Pac-12, we picked Washington to win the Pac-12. I feel really good about this pick still. They're going to at least be in the Pac-12 championship. I am concerned about them going possibly against Oregon. If Oregon's in the Pac-12 championship, I do know that Oregon would be favored over Washington. And I don't know if Washington could beat Oregon a second time. I don't know. I feel a little dicey about that one, to be honest with you. But Washington also has a shot. So we're feeling good about Washington there. They already got their spot locked in for the Pac-12 championship. LSU in the SEC. We were wrong about LSU, though. So a big reason why we rocked with LSU is we just find in general the team would take that step forward. And Jayden Daniels is a quarterback that will at least be invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. But at the same time, the team around him, particularly on defense, let him down quite a bit. It's unfortunate. It's certainly unfortunate. Feels like that they kind of wasted Jayden Daniels' talent, because not only did he throw for 3,500 yards this year, he also has 1,000 rushing yards as well. So things that need to be changed on the defensive side. But LSU, and what really locked them in was that loss to Alabama. If they were able to pull that win off against Alabama, they would be in the driver's seat right now to win the West and take on Georgia in the SEC championship. But unfortunately, losing Jayden Daniels in that second half kind of sealed their fate there. Alabama goes on, wins 42-28. And that was all she wrote after that. So we were wrong about LSU. And then finally in the Sun Belt, we picked South Alabama to win. And South Alabama broke our hearts. They really disappointed me, to be honest with you. So we lost to James Madison, which I'm not surprised about. James Madison is a really special football team. And I talked about this specifically in the Sun Belt prediction video. If James Madison was actually allowed to compete for the Sun Belt Championship, if they were not in the NCAA probationary period, I would have picked James Madison to win that conference championship. And James Madison would theoretically control their own destiny. But South Alabama not only lost to James Madison, they lost to Troy, and that was the game that they needed to have in order to keep their Sun Belt hopes alive. But then to add insult to injury, they also lose to the Raging Cajuns too, and it's tough. You hate to see it. Absolutely tough. So South Alabama, they could still finish the season strong. They could finish the regular season on a 3-game winning streak. It wouldn't matter. Troy is already locked up the Sun Belt West. Just who you're looking at. Is it going to be Coastal Carolina? Is it going to be App State? Is it going to be Old Dominion? Is it going to be one of those free schools coming out of the East? It's going to be interesting what that Sun Belt Championship's looking like. But South Alabama is not going to be there. So we were wrong. So to cap things off, here's what we have. So American is a maybe. ACC, we have Florida State. We got Texas locked in. UTSA, Michigan. They got to play their way in. Conference USA, SEC, and the Sun Belt, we were all wrong in. Mountain West is also, they got to play their way in. And then Pac-12 and Mid-American, at least get to the conference championship game. They're locked in. So we're looking at possibly a 7 for 10, which is pretty good. Maybe let's shoot either like 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. Really wouldn't be too bad. Now, for college football playoff, on the other hand, we also talked about who I think would win in the college football playoff, or not who I think would win college football playoff necessarily. Well, I did talk about who I thought would win national championship. But let's go ahead and dump into who I has my 4 teams in the college football playoff. So the 4 teams that I had Georgia, I had Michigan, I had Washington, and then I also had Florida State. Those are my 4 college football playoff teams at the beginning of the year. And you know the craziest thing about those 4 teams? They're all still undefeated, and therefore they all control their own destiny. And Georgia, so we'll start with Georgia. Georgia wins against Georgia Tech. They're going to be 12-0. They'll be in the SEC championship. If they were to lose against Alabama, and that's an if, theoretically, Georgia could still get in, but they would need some help for sure. They would need a little bit of help. They would need teams like, they would need Texas to drop a game, and maybe like everything else, like remain like chalk, or maybe even like a Michigan or Ohio State. They lose to Iowa. So it'd be like one of those 2 things, and maybe we would see Georgia still in the college football playoff under those circumstances. In that case, we would have 2 teams from the SEC in. What else? Michigan. Everything rides on that Ohio State game. They got to beat Ohio State, and then they're going to take on a ranked Iowa, likely a ranked Iowa team. So this is a tough part of the schedule. We all knew this moving forward, but can Michigan prove that they can beat Ohio State without those cheating allegations, without Jim Harbaugh? It's tough. We'll see. Model does have to be a very close game. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Washington is going to play Washington State in the Apple Cup. They should win that game. They got to beat Oregon twice, though. If they don't beat Oregon, but they do go 12-0, they're kind of going to need some chaos around them in order to still be in. For example, we need, maybe Washington probably might not be in if they don't win the Pac-12 championship. I mean, I'm thinking about this in my head right now, and so they would need Georgia to lose. No, Georgia would need to win. Michigan would need to lose, and then Texas would also need to lose as well. So if those 3 things don't happen, that's a problem. That would be a problem. And even then, I don't know if that would be enough. I really don't know. So maybe everything hinges on that Pac-12 championship, because Oregon would get in for sure too. But would definitely need a lot of help regardless. Florida State handles their business against Florida and Louisville. I think they would be in regardless. However, if they lose to either team, I feel like they would leave Florida State out, even if they were a 1-loss conference champion, partially because of that injury to Jordan Travis. And I don't think it's fair that the committee would put a value on players being having a rank, like a major impact on a team's college football playoff ranking. Should be based off the resume and the entire body of work. But unfortunately, that's just how humans think. That's just that human bias. I think Florida State would be left out if they lose a game. But overall, the playoff field that I chose all control their own destiny. So, I mean, with 2 weeks left to go, we're feeling good about that. And then we paid Michigan to win a national championship. Michigan, we have ranked in the top 5, but they're not peaking at the right time. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned for sure, especially going up against Ohio State, who is kind of peaking at that right time. So that was our preseason predictions. Feel like we're doing pretty good so far. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx myself. If I do, go ahead and jump into that comment section and roast me, because I would deserve it.